Thank you for watching KBC Channel 1. This is BizCheck and we are now in the second hour of the program. During this particular hour, we want to talk about affordable housing. The government wants to ensure that 200,000 houses are constructed annually under the affordable housing program. How is this going to be achieved and what is the role of the local manufacturing industry? To have this conversation is Shem Oduya. He is the managing director in charge of King's Mabati. Thank you for joining us, Shem.
Thank you for having me.
Karibu sana. So 200,000 houses annually, the government wants to ensure that is met. The manufacturing sector, what is your role in this and how are you preparing to make sure that you're delivering on this?
Thank you. First of all, affordable housing is really a key pillar in economic development of this country. I'm aware that one of the pillars of even the previous regime was affordable housing. In addition to that, it was manufacturing. In addition to that, they were also looking at universal healthcare and another pillar. How the government is working with the local manufacturers to ensure affordable housing. First of all, I think the government has to create incentives, to the local developers to ensure that their cost of production is reduced. Secondly, there are also some tax incentives the government has been trying to issue to the local contractors and also the developers. In addition to that, the government has entered into public-private partnerships, to just subsidize the cost of creating and building this affordable housing. But ultimately, as a manufacturer, we are looking at the government really reducing the cost of raw materials. So for example, in my industry, which is Mabati, we import steel, which is very costly in terms of just bringing it to the door of the consumer. And how the government can help us do that to be able to create affordable housing is also to look at the tax incentives towards the steel. The government is looking to improve or increase local production and to also increase consumption of locally made goods. And as you say, the tax environment is not that favorable. How exactly would the government balance between ensuring that products that are produced locally actually are competitive in the market vis-a-vis ensuring that you get the taxes that are required from the imported materials? That is a very tricky balance. We are looking at a government on one side. They want to raise tax in order to feed their budget. At the same time, they're talking about affordable housing. This is a very tricky balance. I think in the recent past, the government has, first of all, in the last budget, the government put, I think, 25 billion or 32 billion shillings towards affordable housing. That is one way they've done it. And there's also a platform that the government created called Boma Yangu, yes. or something of the sort. This is an initiative to allow the government to do at least 200 to 250 houses each and every year. All right. So as local manufacturers, we can partner with the government through, providing affordable and relatively cheap raw materials. To the contractors. So how they can do that, they can ensure that each and every raw material that goes into, the building of the Boma Yangu are actually sourced locally and not actually imported duty-free.
You've just talked about the affordability of materials that go into that sector. And I'm curious, when you're coming up with products for the affordable housing industry, how do you ensure that you're giving it at a cheaper or at a more affordable rate, but ensuring that the quality is still maintained?
I'll tell you, this is as I said, this is a very tricky balance because remember, we work in an ecosystem where as manufacturers, we don't really control all the factors of production.
So, for example, if you look at the cost that goes into these raw materials, there's the cost of the raw material itself, there's the taxes that goes into that, there's the labor that goes into that, there's also other operational costs that go into that. And so when the government puts or taxes this, sometimes as manufacturers we are left in no man's land. But how we make sure that we do that is we make sure that at least we have bare minimum cost, to run our business, and just to balance on what the client really wants.
Access to these materials. Yes, you and the rest of the industry players, you're looking at the government, but also there are Kenyans who are constructing affordable houses on their own, They're choosing that direction instead of going through the government. So accessing these materials at an affordable rate, is it possible in Kenya right now?
It is actually possible. First of all, we need to dissect when we talk of affordable materials, what are we really looking at, and especially when we are looking at the housing. So a house, when you build, probably there's a foundation, there are the walls, which are built by stones. These are materials that are locally affordable and can be found. Then we go to the roof, which is mostly built by steel. As a country, I think we cannot sustain or we cannot supply the demand of the country. So we have to import most of the steel materials to the country. In order for the government to ensure that all the factors needed to construct this house are actually affordable, they have to look into the tax issue. Yes.
So they could, if they don't do that, you have an affordable housing program, but at the end of the day, the houses are not really affordable for the common mananchi.
Absolutely. So, as I said, we work in an ecosystem that is controlled by the government. Okay. So, if the government, for example, says affordable housing, what are we talking about? Affordable to who? Again, to a mama mboga, what is affordable to them? Okay. Remember, they say averagely in Kenya, people earn about 20,000 on average per person. Now, what is affordable to this person who takes home 20,000? What is affordable to this person who takes home 50? And what is affordable? So, this ecosystem is largely controlled by the government, the policies and the framework that the government puts in place. And that's why there's also the aspects of ease of doing business. So if doing business in Kenya becomes a little bit tricky, then we are caught up. Yes.
For a very long time, the Kenya Association of Manufacturers and manufacturers in general, have been complaining about the high cost of production, specifically the high cost of energy. When you look at the steps that the government has taken in the recent past, it somehow seems to beat the idea that they are actually supporting local manufacturing. What are your thoughts on this from a manufacturer's point of view?
I think the government has to really, really be sincere in terms of what they really want to do with the local manufacturers. So we can't talk about affordable housing, affordable manufacturing, yet the cost of production is high. So, for example, you talk of electricity. Electricity, the taxes have been increasing. In addition to manufacturing, there's also, in some other areas, we use fuel, so petroleum products. You are aware that just recently in the last Finance Act, the VAT increased from 8 to 16. So again, I think we need to have a very sincere discussion whether this affordable housing is just at the face of it or it is really affordable. As I said, what is really affordable to you and to me. Those are totally different. But remember, if you look at the government plan, what they're looking at is affordable housing for the low-income earners and the middle-income earners. Yes.
So the low-income earners are these people who earn like 20,000?
20,000, 24,000 and below.
Yes, 24,000
that is what they say.
Right. This program as it is, there are some houses that have already been delivered. Do you see this happening for the government? Do you see them delivering it?
Yes, I think what it takes is the will. And as I said, as the government tries to collect its taxes by widening its tax base, there are also other opportunities of raising, funds to do this, other than the taxes. And I think the government should explore the aspect of using public-private partnership, to fund some of these ambitious, I would say, ideas. So depending on the strategies they put in place, I'm very positive that they would achieve it.
Right. Part of the government's goal in ensuring that there's affordable housing is to create jobs during construction. And there are the jobs on the site, and also there are the jobs to be created in farms like yours, in the manufacturing industry, when output is increased because, there is more demand in the affordable housing market. So what is the industry doing to ensure that it's preparing for this eventuality when now we need more from you and the demand has increased? The industry you're in.
So for us, definitely there are times when there's huge demand, especially in the roofing industry. But in the recent past, I think just after the last year's election, 2022 election, there's been a decrease in spending, or I would say there's reduced appetite to do capital-intensive projects like construction. But at times we experience that surge or demand in construction material, and this happens probably towards the end of the year or towards holiday periods when people have time to really go home and do some of these projects and do long-term investments.
Right. So beyond requiring the government to do this and do that for the industry, are there things that the industry is doing on its own to improve itself as an industry?
Yes, absolutely. So one of the things we've done as an industry, we have an association, of course, the Association of Manufacturers, that is a body which came together to champion for the Mabati or manufacturers. There's also other things we do as, for example, Mabati manufacturers. We try to lobby the government to, see the business sense, especially from the employment perspective. We look at the small businesses. How many people are we employing? So we lobby the government and ask them, listen, if you kill this industry, this number of people are going to get out of employment. And so those are some of the ways we are lobbying the government to reduce the costs.
Right. Part of looking into the future is ensuring that operations are sustainable, especially right now when we are looking to ensure that we are using green technology or just dealing with the climate change issues and anything that impacts climate change. So as an industry, is there anything that you're doing to ensure sustainability?
Definitely. So one of the areas as a company we are trying to deal with is we are trying to work with our partners who are abroad to do research on ways where we can use relatively cheap material, recyclable material, to produce the same roofing sheet, not now Mabati.
Okay.
All right. And one product that has already been found is where instead of using iron sheet, you use plastic, for roofing. It is relatively cheap, but now with the ban of plastic again, with the ban of plastic again, you find, especially in Kenya, we are at a crossroad. But these are products that have been used, especially in Southeast Asia, especially in creating affordable housing. They've been used in many other countries, to just drive the agenda of sustainability.
When you look at the building industry as a whole, do you think that in terms of going green, the industry is going in the right direction, especially adopting greener technologies, and sometimes they are actually cheaper than what we already have currently? Do you think that is happening?
It's a very tricky balance, I will tell you. And especially in my industry, if you look at steel. So most of the big companies, they use coal to, as a raw material for production, because that is the locally available, one of the locally available materials. Embracing green energy has really been a challenge because of the amount of energy required to run this kind of machine and this kind of operation. So yes, as a company and as an industry, we are embracing green energy, for the future, but it takes a lot of stakeholders consultation and consensus for us to have a common understanding on the way forward.
For companies such as yours, there's the issue of, I'm going to say, social responsibility, or ensuring that the community within which you operate in is thriving as much as you are thriving. Are there any activities you have on this front?
Yes, so currently as King's Mabati, first of all, before even looking at the community, you first have to have your house in order.
Yes.
So you can't serve the community, yet part of the staff who are part of the community are. So we have a very robust social welfare just within the company to ensure that staff members' welfare are taken care of. When I talk of this, I mean work-life balance. When I talk of this, I mean, we have ways of addressing their individual needs, And at a community level, we partnered with some NGOs, who probably have, constructions they're doing for schools, constructions, social responsibility they're also doing for, for example, hospitals and things like that. So yes, we've been very active in that front. And just to highlight, so as King's Mabati, we are currently spread in 4 locations. We've had some initiatives around Kibera area. We have a branch in Migori, which is in western part, Nyanza region, former Nyanza region. Around where our branch is, we also have a lot of initiatives by trying to support the local widows and orphans, to do construction and sometimes also to support with schools. And that has also been replicated in Kisumu and Luanda, just after Maseno, where we have those initiatives.
And since you are in this industry, I'd like to ask this. There was a time I visited a church that was built in 1900, sometime around that time. It's built with iron sheets, all round. It has the original that was used. But currently it's very difficult to find some iron sheets that last that long. What is happening? Is it that the quality has gone down? What is happening in the industry?
I think that is, I would say, a big problem that, again, the government really needs to come in, because that is solely the prerogative of the Kenya Standard. Remember, we have Kenya Standards,
yes,
Kenya Bureau of Standards to look at the quality. But remember, I think when you said when you're growing up, that was probably in the 80s or 70s. There were monopoly of companies, you know.
It was in the 90s.
In the 90s.
Not yet here in the 80s and 70s.
All right. Yes. Yeah. But even in the 90s, there were very few companies that used to manufacture Mabatis. I think probably there were two. I won't mention them. And therefore, the Mabati or the steel industry as a whole was largely regulated because there were very few players. And now with a lot of players in the industry, there are also other players who take shortcuts, okay? And that's why we have probably some other products like the ones I think you've seen somewhere not lasting as long. But I will tell you, that is really a minority.
Okay.
Majorly, most of the products in the industry have met KBC standards and should be able to give you the service as per the KBC standards.
When someone is building their house, do they just go shop for any Mabati, or are there Mabatis for specific houses? I need you to speak here as an expert now.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So, first of all, basic principle, Mabati is used for roofing.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
So someone wants to build a house or to roof his house, he will look for Mabati. The second thing to look at when you're buying Mabati is probably for aesthetics, you look at the pattern, okay? So there are some Mabatis designs, like for example at King's Mabati, we have different types of Mabati. We have King style, which looks like a tiled kind of Mabati. They're relatively expensive. We have versatile also, a very beautiful type of Mabati. Then we have also those ones at relatively at the lower level, which is colored corrugated. Then we have box profile. So when you're deciding on which Mabati to use, again, based on what I've told you, there's also the aspect of the budget, all right? Then, so if your budget is low, you can come to us and we can advise you that, listen, based on your project, for example, you can go for this Mabati. Then there's also the aspect of longevity. So are you building just a temporary house for 1 or 2 years, for example, or probably you're using it for hoarding, that is fencing? We can advise you on which type of Mabati to go for so that you don't overkill. Overkilling, I mean you spend more for something that you can, yes.
Right, so that is how to go about it.
Exactly.
Awesome. I hope you've got some tips. If you're building, you will know what to do when you go shopping for your roofing needs. I'm speaking with Shem Oduya. He's the managing director in charge of King's Mabati, and we are talking about what role the manufacturing industry is playing in ensuring that the government achieves its affordable housing goal. Shem, when you talk about job creation in the manufacturing industry, talk about the safety of those people, because they work with very big machines, dangerous machines. If something goes wrong, how do you ensure the safety of your labor?
All right. Again, in a workplace, especially like a factory where we operate,
yes,
there are rules and standards governing that kind of space. So, for example, there's fire and safety guidelines, you know, where you have to put the fire extinguisher, you have to make sure that you have the exit doors. Okay, so there are rules and regulation governing that. Then there are also rules, you know, governing how the employees should be donned in terms of protective equipment. You know, in addition to that, they also need to be taken for regular, you know, training to just make sure that they freshen their knowledge. There are also rules regarding, you know, the ventilation of the building, and the government has put very robust, you know, frameworks, you know. So working in collaboration with NEMA, the county government, you know, and such like bodies, they put up very robust checklists to ensure that each and every manufacturing establishment complies with these rules and regulations.
And that is done in your organization?
Absolutely.
Right. That is encouraging to know. Remember, we are following up on a number of functions that are going on across the country. One of them is the Kenya Water and Sanitation International Conference and Exhibition 2023. We shall be telling you what is happening there in a little bit. Also in Achola, we are following up on there's a function where Interior PS Raymond Omolo is inspecting a guard of honor. He's expected to that particular guard of honor is mounted by private security guards ahead of the launch of the Miale Security Institute. It's happening in Eldoret, Uasin Gishu County. Our reporter Achola Simon is on the ground and shall be updating us within this particular show on what is happening on the ground. But at 30 minutes past 11, we want to take a quick break here on BizCheck. When we come back, the conversation on the role of manufacturing in affordable housing continues. Stay with us. Thank you for watching BizCheck on KBC Channel 1. My name is Betty Kiptum. In studio, I am with Shem Oduya. He is the Managing Director in charge of King's Mabati, and we are talking about the role of local manufacturing to ensure that the government achieves its affordable housing goal. And Shem, before we went on break, you were telling us earlier on you told us about how the government needs to ensure that it's incentivizing the local producers. The government is looking to buy windows and doors and all that from manufacturers. Do you think iron sheets should be included in this list?
Absolutely, because, you know, as I said, if you look at a house in totality, there are roofing sheets,
yes,
of course.
Yes.
So when you look at, and remember, roofing sheets are made of steel. So when they're talking of giving incentives to the Juakali who make the windows and the doors from the steel, it's still the same product. It's only that it's still the same raw material. It's only that it creates different products.
Yeah.
So the government should look at it holistically. So when they say the Juakali people will be, you know, making the windows and the doors and you know, working with the government, in partnership with the government to provide some of these products. Remember, some of these products, they're also taxed. So there's also need to look at that aspect. You know, before the product, there are those costs that go into that product. Yeah.
There's a lot of talk about regional integration and the East African community looking to open up a trade between the member states. What is the industry doing to ensure that it is tapping this market that is opening up and ensuring that production reaches the levels where it can, you know, supply the market?
Absolutely. There's a lot of attraction towards opening the East African, you know, market. In paper, it's there, but still there are those trade barriers. I think just recently there were issues between us and Tanzania, you know, regarding import and export of I think cereals. So the government has worked round the clock, and I think the whole East African communities are working round the clock to ensure that the integration succeeds. But of course, there's also the aspects of a teething problem, I would call them, that we have to, you know, work with to ensure that this is a success. As an industry, I look at East African market as a very rich market. You know, and what we are doing as an industry is to try to look for partnerships, okay, with other partners in other countries, you know, so that we expand our reach and footprint in those regions, and especially just to to our next door neighbors, Tanzania and Uganda, there are also a lot of there's also a lot of demand for steel products in Sudan and Somalia. Remember, because of the situation there. So what we are doing as an industry, for those who've been here longer, they are probably going the merger and acquisition way, just acquiring most of the companies probably on the other side of the border. But I think the most important thing that most of the other companies are chasing is through partnerships and agency kind of framework.
Right. The manufacturing industry, specifically the steel manufacturing that you deal in, it is highly capital intensive, and it from an outside view it almost looks like a big boys club. I don't know if there is room for SMEs to grow in this industry. Is there?
As you rightfully put it, Mabati, being in the steel industry, it's very capital intensive. And I think there's also room for the small SMEs to go into that space. And the reason why I'm saying that is if the banks are currently, other international partners are currently working with the banks, to provide subsidized loan facilities, all right? There are also other financial institutions which are offering cheap loans, okay? And there's also the aspect where people can look at merging, all right? So merging to consolidate their asset base so that they can grow big. So even the SMEs, I think with the right intention and with the right mind, they're able to climb up the ladder.
They're able to climb up the ladder. What kind of skill, especially seeing that you deal in the industry, how much in terms of, do you have the skill set? Is the skill set available in the Kenyan market for this industry?
One good thing with Kenya is you'll find people are really well educated, and also our population, and that not lack of, but inadequate job opportunities make people, find ways of surviving. So definitely we have the skill set within the country to know to just run some of these industries, right from the top, from the CEO level, down to the cleaner, or So yes, I think as a country we have that skill set within us.
Right. So you're saying you've not struggled to look for human resource.
We've not struggled to look for human resource, but there's just a caveat to that. So there's the aspect of the qualification, which is the skill, education, but there's also the culture.
Okay.
All right. Or attitude. So I think there's been talk around, especially employers saying sometimes getting employees is very difficult, workers. And the reason why getting workers is difficult is because getting honest workers is difficult. So yes, there's the skill set, but people have to do a little bit more. Are you able to get honest workers who are able to just live on an honest day work?
So that's definitely an attitude change that needs to happen in the country.
Exactly, and avoid the get rich quickly syndrome.
Well, that seems to be gaining traction in the past few years.
Yes, absolutely.
Unfortunately. So as we come to a close of this conversation, Shem, what does the future look like for this industry?
I think steel industry is one of the biggest, I think it's the second biggest industry, globally, and the future is therefore very, very bright. If you look at the Kenyan context, the population is growing. And as the population grows, there'll be definitely demand for roofing industry, for roofing sheets. So I see the future being very bright, not only in Kenya, but also globally.
Future being bright, not only in Kenya, but also globally. Just let me take you back a little bit. For the industry, how have you adjusted to the changing times in terms of the economic turmoil the global economy is going through?
So we've been in business for, let's say, I can say like 3 years. It has really been tough. One of the challenges I think we've experienced is access to capital. Which with the global recession, I think also the lenders kind of hold onto their purse a little bit tough, a little bit hard. So how we've managed to do that is just through creating efficiencies, within our working space. So you look at, for example, costs that you may not be able to cover, or you can do without, you cut them. Another thing is, at the end of the day, as much as you want to make profit, you also look at the quality of the products, because that keeps the customers coming back, right? So that has been our strong point. In addition to that, we've also been very strong with customer experience, as a company. So it's very important that even with hard economic times, a company sticks to its values in order to give experiential services.
Right, that's very important. Thank you so much, Shem. I'll give you a minute or two to give us your closing remarks.
Thank you so much. So, as King's Mabati, we welcome you to visit our shops. We have a footprint in Nairobi. Our factory is in Nairobi. You can also come to our branches in Kisumu. You can also come to our branches in Luanda, that is towards Maseno. We also have a branch in Migori. Thank you so much.
Thank you very
Jenga
much.
ufalme wako na King's Mabati.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Shem Oduya, Managing Director in charge of King's Mabati, talking to us about what the manufacturing sector is doing to ensure that it enables the government to meet its goal. And of course, he has said that the industry needs to be incentivized to ensure that they can produce for the local market at affordable rates, because most of their raw materials are imported. That has been a conversation about manufacturing for affordable housing with Shem Oduya, Managing Director of King's Mabati. My name is Betty Kiptum. I would like to close the program right here. Do enjoy the rest of your viewing. Bye-bye.